Of all the forms of debt, moral debt is the worst, and I paid the price. I'm Rose. I'll tell you how it is the worst, but please subscribe to the channel and click on the notification button. It is possible to make such videos with the application in description, and if you were moved by the story, you can help us reach more people by making a donation via PayPal. You are blessed. I lost my parents when I was only 6 years old, so I was left alone with Mike, my older brother, to face this world as hostile as it was. In my innocence, I didn't really appreciate the gravity of the situation. I just missed my parents, but I had my big brother, the best in the world, who didn't give me time to think about anything. From one day to the next, we were on the street because after our parents' accident, the family had thrown themselves on the goods that they had. Like scavengers, they had taken everything, without leaving us anything. My uncle had monopolized the house, saying that it was the fruit of his labor and investment. My father had borrowed money from him for the construction. They had no mercy on the poor orphans that we were. My brother, in his helplessness and anger, had left, taking me with him. I remember that the first days we slept in garages, in abandoned cars. During the day, we begged and barely had enough to eat, and when it rained, we sheltered on bridges. I remember one evening after a long day, I was in the garage, and I started to shiver so much my joints hurt. I had a fever, and Mike was in a bad way. We had no money for the hospital, so he had spent the night praying for me until daybreak, but the fever wouldn't go down. I couldn't even get up. I had been sweating all night, and without thinking, Mike took me to the nearest hospital. "Please, my sister is dying, please help him," he shouted, but no one seemed to hear him. A man stopped and carried me to the emergency room. I was in the hospital room, conscious again, and Mike was on the edge of the bed with tears in his eyes. "Mike, why are you crying?" "Look, I'm fine." "I'm not crying, what are you talking about?" "Yes, you are. You're just wiping your tears away." "Absolutely, it's not easy carrying you around. You're heavier than you look. I think you need to watch your figure." We both burst out laughing before being interrupted by a voice. "I see you're both better." "Yes, and thank you so much for your support, sir." "You're welcome, son. Where are your parents?" They're dead." "Oh, I'm sorry, and you don't have another family?" "No, not at all. It's just my sister and I. And before you ask, we're living from day to day. It's really terrible. Anyway, I've paid the hospital bills, and if the princess gets permission, we can go for lunch. What do you say?" "What do you say, princess, who gave me the fright of my life?" "I say I'm very hungry." After I left, we had lunch, during which he made us an offer to live with him, and of course he would take care of the adoption arrangements. "I have just a few questions for you, sir. Before I answer," he said. "Go ahead, I'm listening. Are you a Christian? If so, which passage of the Bible is most important to you?" "I have no children. I am divorced, and yes, I am a Christian. And my favorite passage is Matthew 22:39. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." So said my lawyer, and I were convinced. Without any other form of trial, we moved in with him. We thank God for having given us this grace. Everything went well with Mr. Richard. He was so kind, such a special man. He even decided to send us to school. Years had passed, and Mike was becoming a man, so intelligent and responsible. "I think it's about time you got involved in my business. I'm getting on in years, and who else can be better to take over than my son? But I'd love to. I've been looking forward to it. Thank you for trusting me. You've never given me any reason to complain, so when do I get to be a part of the team?" "Oh, very soon, depending on how you get on, princess." Mike was now a businessman. I didn't see him very often as he was too busy. I missed my brother, but I had no other choice. Then came another disaster in our lives without warning. Then Richard had died in his sleep. How can you be orphaned twice in a row? We had gone into mourning, and Mike spent all of his time in the office to take his mind off things. One evening after school, I found him in the living room, sitting on the floor, completely lost. "What is it, Mike? Don't tell me you haven't finished your mourning yet. I know it's heavy, but what mourning? I won't shed another tear for that man." "Excuse me? Do you know what business Mr. Richard was in?" "No, he never really explained." "Well, he's one of the biggest drug dealers in this country. He ran a cartel and committed so much fraud that now the network has been discovered. They're going to seize everything, and I might even go to jail. We risk losing everything. We have to leave. Leave? But where to? I don't know, but far from here. Before I could say a word, he had taken our belongings and we were on our way. We had left the country with the little money we had left and had to start all over again in a foreign country. Our resources were about to run out, and we had to renew them so that we wouldn't end up on the street. But how could we, since we had no reference points? In the midst of this pressure, Mike was really starting to change. He was coming home late. He hardly spoke to me as he was always drunk. One night he came home with a man, both of them reeking of alcohol. "Here she is," Mike said with a smile. "Oh, she's beautiful. Good evening, my beautiful one." "Good evening, sir." "Mike, who is this?" "He's a very good friend of mine. He's going to help us out of this situation, and you can thank him properly. Properly. You just have to take care of him for tonight, and we'll have a nice life after. I hope it's a good one." "I hope this is a really bad joke, Mike. For God's sake, tell me you're joking." "God has nothing to do with it. He has taken us from sadness to sadness, and so far we have had to be resilient. I have had to look after you all my life, and now you have the opportunity to take us off the brink, so don't be ungrateful." "Sorry. I can't believe you're asking me to sell my body for." "Who said you were selling your body? You'll be his companion in exchange for privileges. Just use what God has given you since he can't help us himself." So I was to be turned into a luxury prostitute with the name Pet Woman. After weeks of refusal, my brother had deprived me of everything. I cried every night with the tears of my body. "My God, I beg you, deliver me from this nightmare. Save your children. You are the father of orphans. You are the one who gives justice to the innocent. I still believe that you have not said your last word." I started to look for work, which was not easy at all. And then the following week, Mike was arrested in a bar for fighting. I didn't recognize him in that cell. "You know what you have to do, or I'm going to die here unless you have a bank account." I was completely down. I couldn't leave him like that, so he gave me his friend's address, and I went there crying. I arrived in front of the building in question and said a last prayer before going in. In the lift, I kept whispering prayers. "Are you all right, my girl?" my neighbor asked me. I couldn't answer. I had a lump in my chest. She had kept silent in turn, and once the lift had stopped, I had taken a deep breath before getting out suddenly. It was as if the ball had exploded and I had burst into tears. The young lady ran to me and hugged me. It was the warmest hug I had ever received. I felt so good in her arms. She communicated a certain peace. She then invited me to sit down, and we chatted as if we had known each other for a long time. In a few minutes, I had told her all about my life. I was interrupted by the feeling of a tear on my hand. She was crying. God be praised. Do you know that you have grace in your life which cannot be compared to any other? Since the death of your parents, God has always made a way for you. I will even say that it is ungrateful of your brother to think for one moment that he has abandoned you. I want to tell you that he never gives up on his children, and I encourage you to stand firm. I have not lived through your story, but I know that my God, who is also yours, never fails. The Lion of the tribe of Judah never fails. I have always lived in opulence, but I was told that I had blood cancer. I did not have much left, and I was convinced that I was doomed. But guess what? After months of intense prayer, my test results showed nothing. I am a living miracle. We have a support group. I invite you to join it, and don't worry about your brother. We'll take care of him. I was happy to go, and Mike later joined me. In this group, we found a family. We received love. Our wounds were healed, and my brother repented. We were even able to get jobs. God is great, and he never fails. Let him decide the end of your story, and not the other way around. Shalom.